Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a store, glance at the price tag, and, without hesitation, decide whether to buy or walk away, while others linger, calculating in silence, as if each coin is a question of survival? On the surface, both are making a purchase decision, but underneath there is a profound difference. One is enslaved by money, the other is free. And here is the uncomfortable question: where do you stand? We often imagine financial freedom as a number, a figure in our bank account, a finish line that separates the struggling from the liberated. But is that really true? If that were the case, why do we still hear of millionaires tormented by anxiety, chained to the fear of losing what they have, while some modest workers live serenely, unafraid of scarcity? Maybe freedom is not about the amount you own, but the relationship you have with it. Imagine the subtle signs that reveal whether you are already breaking the invisible chains of financial slavery. It might not be a new car or a luxurious trip. Instead, it could be the quiet ability to say no without guilt, to choose according to values rather than desperation, or to see money as a tool, not as your master. Niccolo Machiavelli, centuries ago, warned that true power belongs not to the one who owns wealth, but to the one who cannot be controlled by it. He knew that dependence, whether on kings, patrons, or currency, makes us pliable, predictable, and weak. That same principle applies to us today. This video is not about how to earn more, invest smarter, or escape your job. It is about something deeper. Evidence that your mind may already be rewriting the script, that you are already stepping outside the cage, whether or not you have noticed it. So let me ask you again. Have you really looked at the way money moves through your life? Or have you simply assumed that freedom is waiting somewhere in the future, when maybe the first signs are already here? Stay with me, because over the next few minutes we will uncover those hidden signals. You may discover that you are freer than you think, or you may face the uncomfortable realization that money still whispers orders you obey without question. Either way, what you find out about yourself today could change everything. And before we dive in, take a moment, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share your first thought in the comments. Are you the one who hesitates, or the one who chooses without fear? What if freedom was not about escaping work, nor about winning the lottery, nor about waiting for retirement? What if it was already possible here, in the middle of your ordinary life, without needing a miracle or a sudden fortune? Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. You wake up tomorrow, and although your bank account is the same, something inside has shifted. Bills are still there, responsibilities remain, but they no longer dictate your mood or your worth. You walk through the day with a quiet certainty that money is an instrument, like a hammer or a pen, powerful, useful, but never defining who you are. How different would that day feel? Now imagine a second scenario, the opposite one. You receive a raise, or even inherit a fortune, but deep down, nothing changes. You still feel the same anxious pull when the word debt appears. You still catch yourself envying others' possessions. You still measure your choices by how much they cost, not by whether they align with your values. Do you see the trap? Even abundance cannot heal a mind still enslaved. Machiavelli understood this paradox well. He observed rulers who had palaces, armies, and wealth, yet lived in constant fear of betrayal and loss. In their attempt to control everything, they revealed their lack of inner freedom. The same dynamic happens with us. When we obsess over controlling money, money is, in fact, controlling us. But here is the seed of transformation. You already have within you the capacity to reverse this logic. Every time you refuse to let money dictate your self-worth, every time you choose generosity over greed, every time you sacrifice comfort for integrity, you are loosening the chains, without necessarily adding a single coin to your wallet. Ask yourself, which scenario do you secretly believe more in? The one where money is the savior, or the one where you are free, even in its presence or absence? Your honest answer will reveal more than your income ever could. In this video, I want you to walk with me into the first scenario, not as a fantasy, but as a real possibility. Because true freedom begins not when numbers change, but when perspective does. And if you can imagine it vividly, you have already taken the first step toward making it real. We live in a culture that repeats the same mantra: more money, more freedom. It sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Yet when you look closely, that belief is nothing more than a subtle form of slavery. Why? Because it convinces you that your liberation is always postponed, always tied to the next paycheck, the next promotion, the next investment return. Freedom becomes a moving horizon you never reach. Here is the disruptive truth. Financial freedom is not primarily about accumulation, but detachment. Think about it. If more money automatically meant more freedom, then why do we see wealthy people trapped in cycles of endless work, anxiety, and shallow relationships? Why do some of them confess that their fortune feels more like a prison than a blessing? The truth is that enslavement is not measured by numbers in your account. It is measured by how much power those numbers have over your decisions, your emotions, and your peace. Machiavelli, though often remembered for his ruthless realism, pointed to a principle that cuts deeper than any financial advice. Whoever controls your fears controls you. Today, money has replaced kings and princes as the force that governs our anxieties. If your fear of scarcity makes you betray your values, silence your voice, or sell your time without limits, then money is not a servant. It is your master. But consider the opposite. Imagine a person with modest income who chooses work that aligns with their principles, who gives generously without the terror of loss, who sleeps without the weight of comparison. This person may never appear in magazines or social media feeds, but their life reveals a hidden sovereignty. They are not rich in possessions, but they are free in spirit. The break from the illusion comes when you stop asking, "On how much do I have?" and start asking, "How much does it own me?" That single shift disrupts the narrative society has drilled into us since childhood. And in that disruption, you may notice something unsettling yet liberating. You don't need to wait for the future to claim freedom. You can begin right now, in the exact circumstances you find yourself in. So here is the challenge. What if your real prison is not your salary, but your belief that freedom comes later? What if breaking free is not about reaching a number, but about refusing to let numbers define you? Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince, a work often misread as a handbook for manipulation. Yet beneath its pragmatic advice lies a piercing observation about human nature. Power does not simply belong to those who hold wealth, but to those who cannot be controlled by it. Machiavelli saw how dependence corrupted rulers, how even the mighty could be enslaved when their security relied on external possessions. His warning was clear. True strength is measured not by what you accumulate, but by what you can stand to lose without collapsing. This insight has echoed through history. The Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, echoed a similar conviction. They argued that freedom is an inner condition, not an external achievement. Epictetus, once a slave himself, declared that a man who fears losing money is no freer than the one who fears the whip. Both live under the dominion of something outside themselves. Modern psychology confirms what these thinkers already knew. Studies on happiness and wealth reveal a strange truth. After basic needs are met, additional income adds little to lasting fulfillment. Why? Because the mind quickly adapts, creating new desires and new fears. The treadmill never stops. What breaks the cycle is not having more, but changing how you relate to what you have. Let's translate this into something practical. Imagine two colleagues. One earns significantly more, but works long hours, despises his job, and worries constantly about losing status. The other earns less yet sets boundaries, invests in relationships, and sleeps peacefully at night. Which one is freer? Machiavelli and the Stoics would agree. The second. Because freedom is not counted in currency, it is lived in choices. Think of the cultural stories we admire. In literature and film, the most respected characters are not those who hoard wealth, but those who cannot be bought, who choose principle over profit. From Antigone in Greek tragedy to Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, the pattern repeats. True power is moral independence, not financial abundance. When you see this clearly, a radical realization takes root. The measure of your financial freedom is not your salary, not your savings, not your investments. It is your resilience when those things are threatened. Can you hold your ground? Can you remain yourself? That is the kind of wealth no market crash can steal, no employer can manipulate, and no thief can touch. And perhaps, just perhaps, you already possess more of it than you realize. There is a kind of prison we carry within us, so subtle that most of the time we do not even notice it. It is not built of iron bars, but of quiet assumptions that shape our daily choices. We tell ourselves, I can't do that, because I don't have enough. Or worse, I must do this even if it violates my values because I need the money. These whispers often pass unnoticed, yet they guide our steps as surely as chains guide a prisoner. One of the invisible dynamics is comparison. We do not simply want enough to live, we want more than others, or at least not less. A neighbor's new car, a colleague's promotion, a friend's vacation. Each one becomes a mirror that tells us we are behind. This silent race enslaves us, not because we lack resources, but because we measure life in someone else's currency. Another hidden trap is fear. Many live not in pursuit of joy, but in avoidance of loss. We insure, we hoard, we sacrifice peace in the name of security. Yet ironically, the more we cling, the more fragile we become. A single bill, a sudden repair, an unexpected expense, these can send us spiraling not because they destroy us, but because they expose how tightly money grips our sense of control. Machiavelli knew that fear was the strongest lever of manipulation. Kings who kept their subjects in constant anxiety ruled them more effectively than those who offered gifts. In our modern age, money has taken the throne once occupied by monarchs. If your self-worth trembles with your paycheck, if your confidence collapses with your savings, then you are still bowing to a master. And yet there is another dynamic, one rarely spoken of, that signals freedom. It is the capacity to choose loss without losing yourself. The person who declines a higher salary because it demands dishonor, or who gives generously even when the budget is tight, reveals a power greater than wealth, the ability to use money without being used by it. So ask yourself, how many of your choices are truly yours, and how many are made by the silent hand of money? When you peel back the layers, you may discover that financial slavery is not about income brackets, but about invisible strings that tug at your soul. And freedom begins when you finally see them for what they are. Money is not the problem. Your obedience to it is. Financial slavery is not measured in debt or poverty. It is measured in how quickly you betray yourself for the promise of security. You are not free the day you have enough. You are free the day enough stops controlling you. Here is a brutal truth. Many people believe they are chasing freedom when in reality they are just rearranging their chains. A higher salary, a bigger house, a fancier lifestyle. They look different, but the weight is the same. Machiavelli warned that fear is the instrument of control. Today, fear wears the face of money. If every decision is dictated by the terror of not having, then you are ruled by an invisible prince, the economy. Generosity is rebellion. Every time you give without fear, you are striking at the heart of your invisible master. Saying no to money can sometimes be more powerful than earning it. The ability to refuse, to walk away from an offer, a deal, a compromise, proves that you are no longer for sale. Freedom is not purchased, it is practiced. It is lived in small daily acts of resistance against the tyranny of numbers. Ask yourself, do you own your money, or does your money own you? Your honest answer may sting, but it will also reveal the truth of where you stand. And here is the paradox that most overlook. Financial freedom begins not with acquisition, but with renunciation. The day you no longer need money to define your worth is the day money loses its power over you. Remember this phrase. Write it, repeat it, let it echo in your mind. The freer I am from money, the freer I am in life. Simple, uncomfortable, transformative. Because in the end, what chains most people is not poverty, but fear. Not scarcity, but obedience. Not money itself, but the illusion that they cannot live without bending to it. And perhaps you are closer to breaking those chains than you think. Perhaps you have already begun. The question is, will you continue? Here lies one of the most confusing truths about financial freedom. Both wealth and poverty can enslave you, and both can liberate you. It is not the number in your account that decides your fate. but the posture of your heart. Think of it this way. Abundance can make you greedy, always afraid of losing what you own. But it can also make you generous, able to give without fear. Scarcity can make you bitter, chained to envy and resentment. Yet it can also make you resilient, able to live with little and still flourish. The same condition, two opposite results. Which outcome will be yours? This is the paradox most people miss. They think freedom is guaranteed by reaching a certain financial threshold. But history tells another story. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, had unimaginable wealth yet lived with stoic discipline, reminding himself that possessions mean nothing when character is weak. Meanwhile, Epictetus, who was born a slave and owned nothing, spoke with a freedom that emperors envied. Who then was richer? Machiavelli understood that appearances deceive. A prince may seem powerful surrounded by gold and guards, but if his every action is dictated by fear of losing them, he is weaker than a common man who acts by conviction. The paradox reveals itself. Security does not come from possessions, but from the strength to live without them. Here is the practical reflection. When you face a choice, do you decide based on fear of losing money or based on alignment with your values? The answer reveals who truly governs your life. Sometimes refusing the higher-paying job preserves your dignity. Sometimes choosing simplicity protects your peace. And paradoxically, those who stop worshiping money often find it flows more easily into their lives, not as a master, but as a servant. So do not ask, am I rich or poor? That is not the real question. Ask instead, am I free or enslaved? Because a beggar obsessed with coins and a billionaire obsessed with investments share the same prison, while a humble soul at peace with little and a wealthy person who can let go without fear both share the same freedom. Two paths, two possible lives. The paradox is this: the chains are not on your wrists, they are in your mind. Break them there, and no matter your balance sheet, you walk free. What then is the reward of breaking free from financial slavery? It is not simply peace of mind, though that is precious. It is something larger, deeper, the recovery of your life. When money no longer dictates your every move, your choices become honest again. You begin to choose relationships because they nourish you, not because they benefit you. You pursue work because it aligns with your values, not because it pays the most. You give, not to impress, but because generosity feels natural. In short, you reclaim the dignity of living on your own terms. The reward is time, not endless leisure, but the freedom to dedicate hours to what truly matters: your family, your craft, your inner growth. Imagine working not because you are terrified of falling behind, but because your work itself is an expression of who you are. That shift changes everything. Stress transforms into purpose, and obligation becomes choice. The reward is courage. Once you are no longer bound by fear of scarcity, you can take risks others avoid. You can speak truth when silence would be safer. You can refuse corruption even when it costs you. You can live with integrity because you are no longer bargaining your soul for coins. And the reward is joy. Not the shallow thrill of consumption, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing that money no longer has the final word over your happiness. This joy is sustainable. It does not vanish when the market dips or when envy whispers. It is rooted in something deeper, the unshakable knowledge that your worth is untouchable. Machiavelli would say that the greatest power is immunity to control. In our age, this translates into immunity to the dictatorship of money. A society of such individuals would be dangerous to tyrants and inspiring to generations. And on a personal level, it means you become untouchable. Not because you have more than others, but because nothing outside of you owns you anymore. So ask yourself, what would you do differently if fear of money, or fear of losing it, no longer held sway over you? Would you take a different job, end a toxic relationship, start a project that feels too risky? The answers to those questions point directly to the life waiting for you on the other side of financial slavery. That is the reward, and it is already within your reach. To truly understand financial freedom, we must go beyond slogans and enter the architecture of thought that supports it. Philosophy and psychology both converge on a profound truth. Your relationship with money is not primarily economic. It is existential. It reveals how you see yourself, others, and the world. Machiavelli, as we have seen, exposed how dependence makes people manipulable. But he was not alone. The Stoics taught that freedom is the capacity to govern one's own mind, regardless of external conditions. Modern psychology echoes this with the concept of locus of control. Those who believe they are guided by internal values rather than external circumstances experience more resilience, more satisfaction, and less anxiety. Put simply, the framework is this. Slavery to money occurs when your locus of control is external. You believe that your worth, safety, and future depend entirely on what you have. Freedom begins when your locus shifts inward, when your values, not your fears, guide your decisions. This shift does not happen through luck, nor through sudden fortune. It happens through practice, through daily acts of choosing principle over panic, integrity over convenience, generosity over grasping. Each small choice is a thread, and together they weave the fabric of a mind that is free. We see this framework in literature as well. In Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, the narrator mocks society's obsession with rational self-interest, pointing out that humans will sabotage even their own prosperity to prove they are free. He understood something crucial. Freedom is not about maximizing gain, but about the ability to say no to gain when it violates your humanity. Here is the essence. Financial freedom is not a destination, but a discipline. It is not secured by the size of your portfolio, but by the strength of your character. The richest person in the room is not the one with the largest income, but the one least afraid to lose it. This framework reveals why some of you watching right now already have more freedom than you realize. If you have ever chosen principle over profit, if you have ever refused to betray yourself for money, if you have ever found contentment with less, you have already begun to build the foundation. And that foundation is stronger than any vault of gold. So here we are, at the end of this journey. We have seen that financial freedom is not a number on a bank statement, not a lottery ticket, not a dream waiting in some distant future. It is a mindset, a discipline, a quiet strength that reveals itself in the way you choose, the way you give, the way you stand firm when fear whispers. Machiavelli showed us that dependence is the true enemy of power. The Stoics reminded us that freedom is internal, not external. Psychology confirms that the moment you shift from being ruled by circumstances to being guided by inner values, you begin to walk in sovereignty. The conclusion is clear. Breaking the chains of financial slavery is less about changing your income and more about changing your relationship with it. Now, I want to bring this home to you. Reflect on your own life. Can you identify a moment when you refused to let money decide for you? Perhaps you declined an offer that violated your integrity. Perhaps you gave generously when it did not make sense. Perhaps you chose peace of mind over a bigger paycheck. Those are not small choices. They are evidence, living proof, that your mentality has already begun to break the chains. The challenge is to continue, to practice this freedom daily in both small and large decisions. To measure your wealth not by the weight of your wallet, but by the lightness of your conscience. To remember that true security is not found in numbers, but in the kind of person you are becoming. So I leave you with this final question. Are you ready to live as if you are already free? Not tomorrow, not when your savings reach a certain level, but today, in the very circumstances you are in. Because the truth is, you may already be freer than you think. If this reflection has spoken to you, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments one decision where you chose principle over money. Your story may encourage someone else who is still struggling with these chains. And if you found value in this conversation, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join this community of seekers who believe that true freedom is a matter of character, not currency. Because at the end of the day, the richest life is not the one most filled with possessions, but the one least afraid to lose them.